Hello, chefs. Today we talk all about vegetables, how to use them and make them the star on your plates. I am Mark Grigsby, your chef and guide through this experience, and this is the incredible Discourse. So, before we get started, if you haven't already, make sure you visit the website at theincrediblediscourse.com and check out everything about the show. We have a ton of great information on there, all the blogs and downloadable resources that give you a ton of in-depth knowledge that will help you all become better cooks. We all listen in to the show so that we can be better cooks, right? And don't forget to like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. The likes and subscribes go a long way, guys. It helps us reach more culinarians that are looking to become better chefs and cooks, just like you. All right, so short and sweet update. Over. So let's talk veggies. We all love them, but today I want to talk about how we can elevate our cooking of vegetables and make them a star on our plates no matter what setting we're in. So for years and years and years, generations practically, the Western dining culture has often defined the dining experience by the protein on the plate. Think about the common dinner plate. You have your protein in the center, often the largest part of that plate. Then you have your starch, and then your vegetables. And if you choose to go the extra mile, you may or may not have a sauce for that protein. I'll even go out on a limb and say that a pretty good majority of the vegetables is either from a can or previously frozen. It's so common that we don't even notice it. Our moms prepared meals this way. Our grandmother did, and their mothers alike. It's so ingrained we barely question it, if we question it at all. Post-war advertising, mid-century cookbooks, and industrial food systems elevated meat as the centerpiece of every single meal. Where's the beef wasn't just a catchphrase. It was a cultural expectation. Steak meant status, chicken meant comfort, and bacon made almost anything breakfast. It was the association of meat with masculinity, strength, and satisfaction. Vegetables were often seen as diet food or filler, and never really as a culinary opportunity. Even in high-end dining or restaurants in general, the dish is almost explicitly named after the protein. For example, duck breast with sweet potato puree and charred leeks, or beef tenderloin with mashed potatoes and a red wine demi-glace. You almost, if ever, see a dish named after the vegetable. There's no charred broccolini with miso beurre blanc and bonito flakes with a side of filet mignon. Shit, that didn't even come out right when I said it. But this ancient mindset isn't just limiting, it's creatively stifling. In today's world, chefs and eaters are starting to challenge that hierarchy. Vegetable-forward and plant-based menus are gaining traction not just for the health or ethics, but for flavor and creativity. Chefs are realizing that vegetables, when treated with intention, can hold as much presence and power as a ribeye. The last decade has seen a dramatic change in how chefs and home cooks approach vegetables. What used to be a supporting role is now often the star. Not because of trends or restrictions, but because the possibilities are finally being respected. Fine dining restaurants around the world are leading the charge in centering vegetables on the plate. But they don't do this out of necessity, they do it as a creative flex. Some restaurants feature fruits and vegetables from farms on their own properties, treated with as much reverence as dry-aged beef. Others have gone completely plant-based, focusing on fermentation, layering, and umami extraction, proving that technique, not protein, defines their cuisine. These chefs aren't trying to replace the perception of meat, they're elevating produce to be an equal. Interestingly enough, ethnic cuisines have done this forever. In many global cuisines, vegetables have never been an afterthought. In India, rich vegetarian dishes are highlighted with spices, legumes, and layered sauces. In the Middle East, eggplant, tomatoes, chickpeas, and fresh herbs take center stage. In Southeast Asia, bright salads, stir-fries, and coconut-based curries are filled with amazing vegetables and lean heavily on local produce. Africa uses a lot of root vegetables, leafy greens, and pulses as foundational pieces in their cuisine. These cultures show that respecting produce isn't a trend, it's tradition. Farmers markets are booming. Organic and heirloom varieties are easier to find. Shoppers are asking more questions about how their vegetables are grown, stored, and transported. There's growing awareness that in-season local produce has better flavor, is more nutrient-dense, and sustainable. Ugly doesn't mean bad. Oftentimes, it means it's real. Average, everyday home cooks now have access to beautiful produce more than ever before, but they need the skills to treat it properly. And here's the truth. Vegetables are harder to cook than meat. They lack fat and built-in flavor. They cook quickly, they bruise, they brown, and they overcook in seconds. They demand sharper knife work, more control over temperature and timing, layered seasoning, and acid balance. This is why in modern kitchens, the vegetable cook is often the most skilled cook on the line. If you really want to test someone's ability in the kitchen, give them a bin of raw vegetables and no recipe. Cooking meat well is essential, yes, but it often relies on internal temperature and a few key techniques. Vegetables, on the other hand, expose a cook's true skill set, their knife work, their palate, their ability to coax flavor from subtle, fragile ingredients. And unlike meat, where large cuts can be forgiven, vegetables demand accuracy. An uneven brunoise means uneven cooking. Ragged edges means bruised cell walls, which leads to soggy texture. And inconsistent sizing means inconsistent caramelization or burning. Knife cuts aren't just about visuals. They directly impact the texture, cook time, and flavor development of a vegetable dish. You want uniformity? Respect the prep. And in my experience, a chef who can julienne a carrot perfectly is likely to be clean, fast, and consistent across the board. Vegetables are unforgiving with time and temperature. Overcook a steak and you might be able to salvage it. But if you overcook asparagus, it'll turn into mush. Here are a few easy tips for cooking vegetables. When roasting, too low of a temperature, vegetables become soggy. Too high, and the edges burn before the center cooks. When grilling, every single second counts. 1 second too long, and you lose that vibrant color, texture, and that snap. The same with blanching. 10 extra seconds can kill that bright color and make the texture mushy. There's no margin of error. You need control of heat, time, and carryover. Vegetables don't come with umami built in like meat or cheese. That flavor has to be earned, and we earn that in a few different ways. Roasting or sautéing properly creates caramelization, which builds complexity. Fermentation adds acidity, body, and funk. Fats and acids amplify aroma and richness. Spices and herbs become essential tools to bring out the best in vegetables. And because vegetables are delicate, every adjustment is amplified and you taste every decision. Or you taste every mistake. Here's another truth. Meat shows off for you. You throw a ribeye in a hot pan, get that sizzle, that sear, that fat rendering out. It almost kind of announces itself. It's got swagger baked in. But vegetables? Vegetables don't walk into the room with a tuxedo on. You've got to dress them up. You've got to give them that reason to be noticed. And that's where real cooking lives. Not in following a recipe, but in asking yourself, how do I make this carrot speak louder than the steak next to it? What can I do with this beet besides roast it and call it a day? How do I make someone crave cabbage, like genuinely want it? It takes creativity, discipline, imagination. You can't lean on fat or bone marrow to carry you. There's no crutch here. It's all technique, intention, and balance. Because listen, if you can make a turnip taste amazing, you're not just cooking, you're chefing. Here's something I've learned over time, and maybe the hard way if I'm being honest. When you treat vegetables like they're just a filler, that's exactly how they'll taste. But when you treat them with respect, the same as you would a scallop or a dry-aged duck breast, they rise to the occasion. They show you what they're capable of. It's not about turning every vegetable into fine dining. It's about intention. It's about listening to the ingredient, paying attention to what it wants to do on the plate. You wouldn't throw a steak in a cold pan and walk away, right? Same goes here. You wouldn't chop herbs with a dull knife or mash potatoes with no seasoning and expect magic. Respect is in the details. It's slicing that fennel paper thin and marinating it with citrus so it's not just a garnish. It's brightness. It's grilling romaine just enough to get that char without turning it to mush. It's seasoning squash before it hits the heat so the salt actually penetrates. When you start doing that, when you start thinking of vegetables as something that deserves your best technique and your full attention, the whole dish changes. It's more thoughtful, it's more balanced, it feels intentional, because it is. You'll start noticing that the vegetable isn't just on the side anymore. It's carrying weight, it's adding depth, and people notice. Trust me, they always notice. So now that we've talked about why vegetables matter and how to start treating them right, let's zoom out for a second. Because depending on who you are and where you're cooking, the approach might look a little different, but the respect, that's constant. For the home cook, your focus is flavor. That's it. You're cooking for your family, your partner, your friends, or maybe just yourself. So your job isn't to reinvent the wheel, it's to make vegetables taste good. Roast them, glaze them, grill them, toss them in vinaigrettes, top them with crispy breadcrumbs, lean on citrus and chili oil and miso butter, whatever gives them depth. You don't need tweezers, you need technique that works in a home kitchen. This is about building confidence, learning what a properly roasted carrot looks and feels like, tasting the difference between steamed and charred, making small moves that have a big impact. When you realize that tray of cauliflower can be as satisfying as a ribeye, it changes how you cook everything else. For the professional, in a kitchen setting, the expectation is higher, like way higher. You're not just cooking vegetables, you're executing them consistently, quickly, with purpose. You need to know your cuts. You need to know the Blanch shock ratio to hold that vibrant color through service. You need to be able to make a brunoise that doesn't get laughed off the line. And beyond technique, there's discipline, there's waste management, there's intention behind every component. Are you using the tops of those carrots in the gremolata? Are you fermenting your radish trimmings for acidity down the line? Are your pickled onions cut cleaned, portioned right, and garnished with confidence? This is about building plates that communicate, that show precision, that prove you understand balance. Because on the line, if you can cook vegetables right, I'm talking clean, consistent, properly seasoned, and beautifully plated, you've already earned my respect. So, now that we've set the record straight about what vegetables could be, let's expand and dive deeper into the home setting. And you know what that means. It's time for
Food for Thought,
or I like to call
Pro tips from a chef's list.
So let's start with the obvious, but most overlooked part of cooking vegetables. Buy better veg. And no, I don't mean spend more money. I mean pay better attention. You can't roast flavor into a zucchini that was grown across the country 3 weeks ago and picked before it was even ripe. You can't braise sole into a tasteless, watery tomato in the middle of January. And no matter how much oil, salt, or sauce you hit with it, if the produce is bland, the dish will be too. So here's your move. Buy seasonal, ripe, and local whenever you can. If it grew close to where you live, it probably had a chance to ripen before it was picked. If it's in season, it's more likely to taste the way it's supposed to. And if it came from a farmer's market or a local co-op, it wasn't sitting in a truck for a week before hitting your plate. And look, I get it. Not everyone's walking through a Saturday market in a sun hat. You shop where you can, but even at the grocery store, you can still shop smarter. Skip the bag of baby carrots and grab whole carrots with the green still on. Choose tomatoes that smell sweet and earthy. Pick bell peppers that are glossy and feel heavy for their size. Vegetables should have weight, color, and fragrance. If they don't, they're probably not worth your time. So if you want your vegetables to taste like something, start buying ones that actually do. You don't need 12 ingredients in a sous vide machine to make vegetables taste good. Most of the time, the best move is also the simplest. Apply heat and let it work. Roasting, charring, grilling, even air frying. These aren't just methods, they're transformation tools. They take a raw, often underappreciated ingredient and turn it into something craveable. Start with roasting. This one's your baseline. Roasting gives you caramelization, which means flavor. It brings out natural sugars, creates crispy edges, and concentrates whatever's already there. Set your oven to 425, season well, and leave it alone. Don't open the door every 5 minutes. Let the heat do what it does. Want more drama? Char it. High heat cooking in a cast iron pan or on a grill gives you that dark, smoky edge, the kind of flavor you can't fake. Think charred broccolini with lemon, grilled cabbage steaks, even blistered green beans in a ripping hot skillet. That contrast between bitter, sweet, and umami, that's what makes vegetables exciting. Grilling equals fast flavor. Throw a zucchini or an eggplant on the grill and you instantly elevate it. You get the lines, the sear, the smoke, all in a couple of minutes. And if you hit it with a little oil, vinegar, or herb sauce afterward, you've just turned it into something people actually want to eat. And air frying? Okay. Listen, I fought it too, but that thing is legit. It's basically a countertop convection oven. You get crispiness without drowning everything in oil, and it's fast. Air-fried Brussels sprouts with a drizzle of balsamic and honey? Game over! You don't need complicated techniques. You need to understand what heat does and pick the method that brings out the best in the veg in front of you. Roast it, char it, grill it, or fry it. Just don't overthink it. If you learn how to apply heat properly to vegetables, you'll never need a recipe again. But you're probably at home saying to yourself, that's easy for you to say because you're a chef and you know how to do a lot more than I do and a whole lot quicker, more creatively. I feel that. Not everybody has time to cook from scratch every day. That's real life. I get it. But that doesn't mean you can't still eat well or cook like a pro. You just have to get smart with your prep. This is where batch prepping vegetables becomes your best friend, if you do it with purpose, of course. And here's what I mean by that. Let's say it's Sunday. You've got an hour. Roast off a tray of sweet potatoes, cauliflower, and red onions, seasoned properly, roasted at high heat, and stored in separate containers. Now you've got the building blocks. Monday, toss the sweet potatoes into a grain bowl with farro, arugula, and a citrus vinaigrette. Tuesday, reheat the cauliflower and fold it into a veggie curry with coconut milk and chickpeas. Wednesday, the red onions go on a flatbread with feta and olives. Thursday, you mix what's left of all of those and make a warm salad with a fried egg on top. That's 4 meals, 1 tray of veg, 0 waste, and maximum flavor. The key is to roast everything properly the first time. Don't underseason. Don't overcrowd. Don't throw everything together in one big bowl like a stir-fried gone wrong. Keep your components clean, intentional, and ready to be recombined. You're not just meal prepping. You're setting yourself up to cook creatively all week long. Batch prep isn't about cooking once and eating the same shit for 5 days straight. It's about building a foundation so you can remix your vegetables into something fresh every day. All right, let's talk about where most home cooks go wrong. Not to call anybody out, but because if we don't name these issues, we can't fix them. And when it comes to vegetables, there are 3 big ones. The first is overcrowding the pan. If your sheet tray looks like rush hour traffic, you're not roasting, you're steaming. All that moisture gets trapped and you lose your shot at crisp edges and caramelization. Spread things out. Give each piece of veg its own space to breathe. Use 2 trays if you have to. I'd rather see 2 beautiful, golden pans of roasted carrots than 1 overcrowded mess of limp orange sadness. The second is under-seasoning. Salt isn't optional. It's essential. A bland vegetable is usually just an under-seasoned one. Season early so it penetrates while cooking, and then taste at the end. Add finishing salt, acid, herbs, whatever completes the flavor. Don't be afraid to go bold. Vegetables can handle more seasoning than you think. And the last is boiling everything to death. Look, unless you're blanching or making soup, there is almost never a reason to boil vegetables in plain water. It strips flavor, it ruins texture, it turns vibrant colors into dull mush. Steam lightly, blanch briefly, but otherwise get out of the water and into the fire. These mistakes aren't because people don't care, they're just habits. And habits from how we were taught or how we grew up eating. But the second you recognize these habits, you're already cooking smarter. So don't overcrowd the pan. Season with intention. And please, for the love of flavor, stop boiling your vegetables like it's 1974. Everything we just talked about, From buying better veg to building layers of flavor, from proper heat application to avoiding the usual mistakes, it's all about mindset. You don't need a brigade behind you. You don't need a line cook peeling beets in the back and someone calling fire on the oven. You just need to think like a pro and then cook like one. Respect your ingredients. Taste everything. Work clean. If you bring that kind of intention into your home kitchen, your vegetables and your cooking will start hitting on a completely different level. That's how you grow. That's how you level up. That's how you go from just making dinner to making food worth remembering. Now, let's step behind the pass. Because if vegetables are the test, then the line is where you find out who studied. Let's be real. If you're working a station, you already know that vegetables aren't the easy part of the plate. They're the test, the gauge, the thing that shows whether you've got real control or just fast hands. So, it's easy to get sloppy with vegetables in a professional kitchen. Everyone wants to flex on the protein station. Everybody wants to cook the duck breast or fire the short rib. But if your knife cuts are uneven on the veg prep, if your mise is messy or inconsistent, that's not just a sign you're behind, it's a sign you're not paying attention. And with vegetables, that lack of precision shows up fast. And here's why. Uneven cuts means uneven cooking. If half of your carrots are thin and the other half are chunks, half of them are mush and the rest are underdone. No one's got time to pick through and sort during service. It should have been done before the fire. A jagged knife edge bruises vegetables. That bruising breaks down the structure and leads to soggy textures and dull colors, especially in things like herbs, leafy greens, and aromatics. Organized Mise is a clean station and a clean mind. If you're reaching into unlabeled deli cups and guessing which cut is for what prep, that's not professional, that's chaos. And chaos leads to mistakes. This is why veg stations are often given to the strongest cooks, not because they're glamorous, but because they demand consistency, control, and awareness. The way you treat your mise, your cuts, your containers, your process, is a direct reflection of the kind of cook you are. If your station is tight, your veg is clean, and your knife work is dialed in, you're already ahead of the curve. If you're on the veg station, your toolbox better be deep, because vegetables don't give you anything for free. You have to know how to apply the right technique to the right ingredient at the right time. Technique isn't just something you bust out for the tasting menu. It's how you bring out the best in the most humble ingredients. Let's break down a few techniques that every serious cook should have locked in. Blanch and shock. This isn't optional. This is foundational. You want bright green beans or vibrant broccolini that actually snap on the plate? You better be salting the water like the sea, boiling until just tender, and then shocking in ice water to lock in that color and texture. Skip this step, and your veg looks tired before it even hits the plate. Glazing. Glazing is how you take root vegetables from meh to more. It's that sexy, glossy finish that gives carrots or turnips real presence. Butter, stock, a touch of sugar or acid, then reduce it down while tossing and turning until that veg is coated and shining. It's clean, controlled, and loaded with flavor. Confit. You ever had a garlic clove confit in olive oil? Imagine that same depth on fennel or radish or even cherry tomatoes. Low and slow and fat transforms veg into something silky, rich, and spoonable. A soft texture contrast that holds beautifully on the line. Grilling. Grilling is high-heat honesty. You either know what you're doing or you don't. A blistered shishito, charred cabbage, or grilled zucchini needs control, timing, and the confidence to leave it alone until you've got that perfect mark and just enough bite left in the center. Fermenting. Now, this one separates the cooks from the thinkers. Fermentation brings funk, depth, and complexity, the kind that makes a veg dish memorable. Pickled mustard greens, fermented radish tops, a quick kimchi. These aren't just garnishes, they're layering agents. And here's the deal. If you default to roasting every veg on the tray, you're not cooking, you're coasting. Technique shows thought, it shows intention. And in a kitchen where time is tight and plates move fast, having the right move ready and executing it properly is what makes you stand out. Let's talk about one of the clearest signs of a dialed-in cook, the zero waste mentality. If you're tossing half your produce in the compost or trash, you're not just wasting money, you're wasting opportunity. Nose to tail doesn't just apply to animals. Nose to stem is the same mindset, just applied to veg. Every part of the vegetable can serve a purpose if you think creatively and cook with intention. Carrot tops? Blend them into the gremolata or herb oil, bright, earthy, and a perfect contrast to the sweetness of the carrot itself. Beet greens? Don't toss them. Braise or saute like you would kale or chard. They hold up beautifully and add a bitter, savory note to the dish. Corn cobs? Once you shave the kernels off, those cobs still have flavor. Toss them in a stock pot or steep them in cream for a corn-forward sauce or custard base. Broccoli stems? Peel, shave, julienne, raw in a slaw or quick pickled for acidity and crunch. That's texture that you don't have to buy from a purveyor. Mushroom stems? Dehydrate and blitz into a powder. That's an umami bomb, perfect for dusting roasted veg or folding into sauces. This isn't just about going full scrap everything mode just to prove a point. It's about seeing value in every part of the ingredient. It's about cooking smarter, cleaner, and more creatively. And if you're on a food cost crunch, you already know that these things are gold. Stretching every component into something useful isn't just responsible, it's profitable. A cook can make something tasty with perfect trim produce, but a pro finds flavor in what everyone else throws away. Here's the part a lot of cooks overlook. Vegetables don't just sit on the plate to fill space, they define the plate. They set the tone for everything around them, visually, structurally, and even emotionally. You want to write better menus? Understand vegetables. Let's start with acid. Veg naturally carries brightness. Whether it's pickled onions, citrus marinated fennel, or shaved radish, vegetables are where most of your acid lives. And acid is what lifts the entire dish. It cuts through richness, balances fat, and keeps the palate sharp. Then there's texture. Veg gives you the snap, the crunch, the contrast. A plate without it is flat. If your lamb loin is perfectly cooked, but you didn't balance it with a crisp artichoke leaf or a fried leek nest, you're missing the mark. Texture tells your guests you thought the dish through. And don't forget about plating. Vegetables give you shape, negative space, and color. A roasted beet isn't just earthy. It's deep red. It stains the plate. It feels rich. A pile of charred greens on the side of a white plate adds height and motion. How you cut, arrange, and sauce your vegetables often determines whether the plate looks composed or clumsy. But here's the deeper layer. Vegetables tell a story. They show the season. They show where you're sourcing from. They show restraint. That you don't need a $50 cut of meat to make something compelling. They show you're a cook who respects the entire process, not just the center protein. So yeah, vegetables aren't just supporting actors. They set the rhythm. They create the frame. And when they're handled with care, they make everything else look better. So let's bring it back to the business side of things, because respect isn't just about craft. It's about keeping your kitchen alive and profitable. And vegetables, they're one of the most powerful tools you've got for cost control and sustainability, if you know how to use them right. Compared to proteins, veg is cheap. But when treated properly, when it's roasted, glazed, charred, pureed, pickled, and then plated with intent, it has the perceived value of a premium item. That's how you drive up margins without cutting quality. You serve a perfectly grilled cabbage steak with romesco, herb oil, and a few pickled shallots. That's a $16 veg dish that costs you $2 to make, and no one blinks. This ties right into nose to stem. If you're throwing away 30% of your veg order because you're not using stems, peels, or offcuts, you're literally throwing money in the trash. But if you have a system for repurposing those scraps, whether it's into purees, broth, sauces, or garnishes, you're extending your dollar while tightening your operation. And the bonus? You reduce your food waste footprint, which matters more now than ever. Vegetables give you range. You can rotate them seasonally, build specials around market finds, and use them to balance out high-cost proteins. If tenderloin goes up in price, stretch it by building the dish around a seasonal vegetable base instead of a starch. That's the chess game. That's where the smart kitchens win. If you're running a kitchen in 2025 and not thinking about sustainability, you're already behind, because guests care, operators care, and your team cares too. Using more vegetables, reducing waste, buying local, all of that sends a message. We give a damn. We're not just cooking, we're building something responsible. The best kitchens don't just cook well, they operate well, and vegetables are one of your sharpest tools to do both. All right, let's bring this out of theory and into real life. Because every cook knows what sounds great in a meeting or looks beautiful on paper doesn't always hold up during a Saturday night rush. So here's what respecting vegetables actually looks like on the line. Here's a scenario of the broccolini that got burned. So, you're mid-service, orders are stacking, and the broccolini goes on a screaming hot plancha. You walk away to plate a steak, you come back, and it's scorched. Now you've got a choice. Do you serve it anyway and hope no one notices? Or do you refire it, even though you're already 2 tickets behind? The answer is simple. You refire it. Because even if it's just a veg, it still represents you. Vegetables are not filler. If you wouldn't serve an overcooked scallop, don't serve burnt broccolini. Or what about in the prep? You're peeling and shaping carrots for a composed plate. Nice obliques, clean cuts, everything tight. But now you've got 2 quarts of peels and ends. Instead of tossing them, you save them. Later that week, they go into a carrot ginger puree or a veg stock for a risotto. You've stretched your product, cut your waste, and elevated another dish, all because you had the discipline to think ahead. Or what about what I like to call the sauté station scramble? You're at sauté, the grill's down a man, you've got 3 veg dishes up on the same fire time, glazed carrots, grilled cabbage, and seared mushrooms. One of the dishes is running behind and the expo is waiting. It's tempting to rush, drop the veg early, or just make it work. But professionals know if the plate doesn't go out right, it shouldn't go out at all. Respecting the vegetables isn't about ego. It's about knowing that the guest has one shot at that dish, and it needs to be worth it. Vegetables are often the last thing plated, but they leave the first impression. And in a pro kitchen, it's the cooks who respect every component, not just the proteins, who stand out. So yeah, vegetables. They're not backup dancers. They're not just a healthy option on the plate. They're the real test of your palate, your prep, your technique, and your mindset. If you're a home cook, I hope this episode gave you some confidence to start treating produce like it deserves to be the main character. Roast it hotter, season it smarter, plate it with pride. And if you're working on the line, you already know the deal. Respect your cuts, respect the station, and respect the fact that the best cooks in the building are often the ones doing the most with the least. Vegetable cookery isn't about trends, it's about mastery. And if you're listening to this show, I know you're chasing that. So, if you learned something today, if you're going to go roast your next veg with a little more heat, or you're going to stop boiling the soul out of your green beans, then I want to see it. Follow us on X and share your dishes with the hashtag Incredible Discourse. Tag me, drop a pic of your veg-forward plate, and let me know what resonated. And don't forget to subscribe to the Incredible Discourse on Spotify, YouTube, or Amazon Music, whatever platform you're on. And go visit the website at theincredible.discourse.com. Sign up for the newsletter and get access to exclusive blogs, downloadable resources, and show updates. This month, we've got some serious gems dropping on the resource section, including sauce systems, tool guides, and a deep dive on building flavor with vegetables. You're not going to want to miss it. And hey, if you've ever wanted to bake bread but felt like it was too complicated or time-consuming, you'll want to be here in 2 weeks. We're keeping it simple, functional, and flavorful in episode 18, titled Bread Basics, Unlocking Flavor with Simple Doughs. I'm breaking down how to make bread that works for your real life, not just your Instagram feed. And shout out this week to Chef Janelle89, who posted a killer roasted carrot dish with whipped goat cheese and spiced pecans, clean plating, and a sharp flavor profile. That's what I'm talking about. Want to get featured? Post your dish, tag me, and let me know what episode inspired it. That's it for this round, y'all. Stay sharp, eat better, and cook like you mean it. I am Mark Grigsby, and this was another amazing episode of The Incredible Discourse.